Hi, everyone, and welcome. Ascension is full of interesting people who have something worthwhile to say. In this series, I'm calling Insights from Within. I'm interviewing members of Ascension. My hope, of course, is that we can listen with open ears, come to understand our fellow sisters and brothers better, and of course, grow in our own faith too. The topics will vary, but the goal remains the same: to come to know one another. Today we have Donna Crump. I'm very excited to have Donna here with us today. Donna's been a longtime member and active volunteer and leader at Ascension, and I'm looking forward to our conversation, Donna. Let's start with prayer. Holy God, as we come to know one another better and gain insights from one another's wisdom, may we also come to know you. I give you thanks for Donna today. Bless our time together. Amen.
Amen.
Donna, let's jump in. Tell us about your faith growing up. Were you always Lutheran? Tell us about that.
Well, I grew up in a military family, so we went to the base Protestant chapel. At that point in my life, all I knew was there was a Protestant and a Catholic. I didn't know other denominations, although being from the South, I'd heard of the Baptists. But I didn't really know a Baptist, I didn't think. But anyway, when I was in 7th grade, we were living in Hawaii, and my best friend was from North Dakota, a whole world away. And she invited me to confirmation, and I went. And ultimately, that ended up pulling my whole family into the Lutheran Church.
Wow.
And I really do like to tell that story because I think people shouldn't be afraid to invite their friends to church. You never know the potential impact. And turned out it brought my whole family into the church just by a friend inviting me to come.
That's really cool. It's cool, like both from like a sense of America, where like only in America does someone from Georgia meet someone from North Carolina in Hawaii? Like there's just something like beautiful about that. But also just this sense that, something so small, like you said, can pull a whole family in. What about the flavor of Lutheran Christianity? What about Lutheranism entices you? What appeals to you about being a Lutheran?
Yeah. I think most people will pull towards the grace portion of our theology, but it's true for me because I feel like I'm accepted in spite of my flaws. I have things that I don't always do well, and there's grace for me. I feel like Ascension especially, we not only preach grace, but we practice it. And I don't feel like I have to fit some preconceived notion of what this perfect Christian is. Of course, there isn't one. So
yeah.
But I try and do my best as I can, and then I continue to move forward, and I have people around me who are doing the same thing, and I find strength in that.
That's cool. Thanks. I agree. I that grace just uplifts and makes everything possible, for sure. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is, there's lots of reasons, but one of them is I find your work fascinating. And I think it's probably the nerd in me that just thinks it's also interesting. So can you tell us, for all of us nerds, what do you do?
Well, I am the Freedom of Information Act, we'd say FOIA in my world, the FOIA and Privacy Act officer for NORAD and U.S. Northern Command. So I kind of see myself as the liaison between public and the commands. We live in a society, we are a government of the people, and so our goal is to be transparent so that the public can make informed decisions.
Yeah.
But it's challenging at times, though. It's the problem really, I guess, is I work for the Department of Defense, and so our adversaries are looking to find out as much as they can about us. And so the real challenge is to balance the need for that well-informed society against like national security or even privacy concerns with what information we release.
You told me once that the other challenge is you've got people asking you for information, and then you've got the government that you work with that is sometimes reluctant to share information, or not so much that, it's just a lot of work to find it. And you're the person having to tell both of them, sorry, you don't get that, or sorry, you need to find this, or you know what I mean? Like a liaison is the happy word for it, perhaps, right? The one stuck in the middle sometimes is it maybe too.
Definitely. I mean, requests can be they can be huge. I deal a lot with the media who aren't compassionate. You know, they want what they want for good reason. But then whenever we get a request, I have to have people stop what they're doing in their daily job to pull information, to search for information, and maybe they don't release it. And I have to tell them, the fact that something might be a little embarrassing isn't a reason we can withhold information. There's 9 FOIA exemptions, and to withhold anything, it has to fit within one of those exemptions, or we release it. And that's always popular within the headquarters. But at the same time, the people requesting the information get mad when I redact any information. So I always say I'm the least popular person in the command.
But one of the most important, right? Like that, the command can't exist without connection to the wider world, and you foster that connection. So it's really neat. What kind of stuff do you get asked? I mean, I would think, what would I ask? I have no idea.
Well, there's some things that are repeat topics. I tend to get asked a lot about unidentified kind of phenomena. NORAD is an aerospace defense, and so anything that would be suspect or followed would be a NORAD mission. One thing that's helpful is that NORAD is an international organization, so it's not subject to the laws for U.S. agencies. So we don't search for those records. Just explain that NORAD's not subject to the FOIA, but we get those are sometimes some really interesting, requests. Because they'll call me and they'll want to talk to me, and I'm sure they're sitting on the other end of the phone with some tinfoil on their head or something, but they're but they have concerns, and I'm there to listen to them. But really lately it's been Southwest border, anything with the support to Southwest border for the defense, anything pandemic related is popular right now, and civil disturbance is popular. If you think about something in the media and the military's involved, those are the types of requests I get. But it can be anything. And that's one thing that's interesting, because I don't know a lot, but I know who to go talk to. And so I talk to people from across the command, and I learn something new almost every day, because I'm not an expert in any of it. So I have to go talk to the people who are. Things to me so we can see what we can release, and what maybe if there's a harm from the release, I need to know about that as well.
That's really cool. Like you just get to learn all these neat things and then share some of it with us. Which is cool. I know that a couple of years you've been in this job, what, 2-3 years now, is my guess.
2 years, yeah.
And I know that you were there was some desire you had to change things up a bit. Tell us about that impulse to try something new for you.
That was an interesting time in my life, because I like I said, I grew up in a military family. I was used to moving and changing a lot. As a kid, as I grew up as a kid, we moved every 3 years or so. And once I married Scott, we moved every 5 or 6. So I was kind of used to changing. And when Scott retired in 2012, it kind of dawned on me that, gosh, if there's going to be something different in my life now, it's not going to be somebody telling me it's time to move, it's time to change. It's going to be onto me. And then I was overcome with not knowing what did I want to do. So I started looking at everything. And I even at one point volunteered for a 1-year civilian deployment to Iraq and Afghanistan. Just, okay, well, let's try that. That'll be different.
Yeah.
And really, as it turned out, I was offered the deployment position, and I chose what I'm doing now with FOIA instead.
Yeah.
A little bit easier. I didn't have to leave my family. It's a little bit safer. Okay, a lot safer. but I was a kind of a weird time where I was searching for something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hadn't thought of that fact that it had always been, that aspect of it had always been done for you because of the military, right? And
right.
I wouldn't have expected that anxiety about, I now have to figure out that next step, right? But that's probably comes from someone who's like, I don't ever want to move ever. So
right.
It's a different, right? There's a different impulse within you. Yeah.
It is. And so now I've lived in Colorado longer than I've lived any place my entire life.
Wow. How long have you been here?
2003, so 17 years. That's a long time. That's
That is a long time. Yeah, it's really cool.
When we love it here. So we decided to stay when Scott retired. It was like, well, this is going to be our home. So now what do we?
It's cool. I'm proud of you. I think we should all like take notice of how you kind of seize the bull by the horns there to say like, okay, this is up to me now to determine what's next in life. And even those of us who aren't in the military, sometimes we just kind of sit back and let life happen to us. But you seized it, which I think is really admirable. So good on you. You have been like connected to the military, but not in the military your whole life. And it's interesting because I came back to Ascension in 2012. So immediately 8 years compared to your time here. But one of the things I've noticed being at Ascension is, of course, I'm connected now to a lot of people who have been in our military. And I've noticed that people in our military connected tend to be organized, disciplined, focused. You've been connected to the military for a long time. What traits have you gained, do you think, with this military connection over the course of your life? How have you grown or learned? What have you learned from being so close to the military?
Well, I would say to embrace change and not to be afraid of it. That's a big part of it. But to also, to value working with different folks. The military is great about taking people from all walks of life, throwing them together to accomplish a single mission at some point. And so what I've learned is that it's best to have a myriad of ideas, especially and to get new ideas. I've found that if people are in one thing too long, they don't tend to think differently. They just keep the same thing over and over again. And so embracing change is huge, and valuing diversity. Those are big things I've learned from the military. But I would say too, the military stretches you sometimes beyond. You think, oh, I can't do that. And they're like, we're going to train you and you're going to do it. And come to find out, hey, I can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm more inclined to stretch myself and have gained confidence over the years that, I can do more than I think I can.
Boy, those are good answers. I really like the first one you talked about. It's really enlightening to someone who's not within the military, right? Because like from a layperson's looking inside, you see the uniforms, you see the uniformity of everything. But underneath that, there's this great diversity of people. And of course, when you think about it logically, like the advancement of like civil rights in our country, a lot of that happened through the military, right? As people of various races and areas of the country were brought together. And I think that spurred a lot for that movement in our country. I think it's fascinating. We don't see it as often. And then for you to feel it, even though you're not in it, the military yourself, to feel that impulse to change and that move to try and do new things that's neat.
I would say it's a culture in that regard. Each service has its own different cultures in a way. I've worked with every service, and including other foreign services. So it's interesting to see that. But one of the things I really like about my current job is it's a joint environment. I'm an Air Force civilian. I've been a civilian for 25 years. But my assignment is in a joint environment. So you have all these different cultures fighting, and it brings just all new way of looking at things.
Yeah, I got to visit you at your office once, and like you took me on the tour, and it's like, this is so and so, and they're in this, and they're in this, and it's just like it was amazing how many different groups were like on the same hallway. That was cool. So yeah, that was neat. How has the pandemic affected work for you? You've already mentioned how COVID is something that is the subject of a lot of the FOIA requests you've had. But personally for you at work, and in terms of this, like how COVID has affected the base in general, tell us about COVID and your job.
Well, COVID has, I guess it's very similar to folks off base. It's really impacted how many people work in person, and we're finding new ways to do things. I'm teleworking every other week. We're trying to keep the office or at 50% of its normal capacity as a way of controlling. It impacted me personally because my job as a privacy officer, we were having to say how much information can we collect from people so that we can monitor who's been sick, who hasn't been sick, and those types of things really were impactful in my job. But you know, with the pandemic, military they're great planners, and so they have a plan for almost every contingency you can think of.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, Northern Command pulled out its pandemic influenza plan. We had one, you know, and so it's been exercised. We kind of what we're doing there, and so they pull it out. They make some adjustments, and really, at that point, you kind of have to wait for the state governors to ask for military assistance from the president, and then the command can step in to do some things. But it's challenging, and I don't know. I like to talk to people in person, so even this interview on Zoom is awkward for me a little bit, and so I am working from home a lot of times, trying to find out what information are stored in places in the building, and trying to figure out who's there and who's not there, and what can I access. And I have no access to anything classified from home, and so that's a whole nother set of challenges. So it's really trying to think of time managing what to do at home and what to do when I'm in the building, get the most out of it.
Is sort of like the morale of the building bolstered by this? Is everyone sort of seeing this as another mission, or has it been hit by it? How would you describe that?
I would definitely say it's seen as a mission, because it is. We're the lead DoD agency in response to the pandemic, and so it changes the focus. Whenever something like this happens, some of the things that happen on a daily basis gets pushed aside, and we have a new focus, and that the pandemic is the current focus right now. The commander is definitely involved, and all the leadership is, and so that just trickles down. But there's anxiety too. So it's, I have to walk through a thermal scanner kind of thing every day when I go into the building, and if it's just right, you get a and you're not allowed in. So there's that kind of stuff is just anxiety. And you pass people in the hall and you kind of notice they really walk away from you. But I think that's everywhere. We all have our mask on, and everybody's just careful.
Well, I'm glad for that, for your sake and for theirs, for all of our sake. Yeah. Let me kind of shift focus a little bit to sort of some faith and church stuff. And I actually want to do the church question first, which was on the plan, because you mentioned that being with the military it kind of forces you to try new things, right? And creates within you this impulse to try new things too. And you have certainly done that at Ascension, right? So when I came here, you were finishing up as youth board director, and then you were going to start as secretary for the council. And then later you became vice president for the council. And then now you're council president. I've only been here 8 years, right? And so you've been involved in various things. You join up with a musical group, and then you pull away, and then you try another thing. What, with the leadership role specifically, what has drawn you to these various leadership roles at Ascension?
Well, I think it's more of drawn to be involved, when I see something good happening and wanting to be part of it. I never really thought of myself as a leader.
Yeah.
So, the nominating committee would call and ask me to do things. And sometimes, really almost every time, I was like, well, I got to think about this. I'm not sure I'm the right person. I always felt, eventually I would step up and accept the position. And I just always knew I had a team behind me. I was never expected to do something alone. We always work together. Again, it's similar with work in a way. So it's like, okay, I'm going to try this. And then if you notice, those were kind of almost little stepping stones. At each thing, I would get a little bit more confidence about what I was going to do. Gosh, when I first started Ascension, I don't know, when you're moving, one thing, when you move to a new place, to get to know a community and to meet people is to get involved. And so, I joined the bell choir right away, and I went on a women's retreat, got to know some people, and I decided to conquer this fear I had of public speaking. And so I decided I would volunteer to read lessons on Sunday.
Yeah.
And the very first time I did it, my leg was shaking. I was just nervous, and it got better. It did.
Yeah.
So each time I would be nervous about a new leadership role. But each time it's worked out. So I'm thankful for the opportunity to have stretched myself in these ways. It's good for me.
It's been good for us. I mean, I'd like to stretch you more, but I don't know if you're allowed to be bishop or something. I don't know where we go next. But as council president, I mean, what you said it's been good for you. You've grown from it, the team aspect of it. What are the other? What do you? I'm assuming you do like it. What do you like about being in these leadership roles? If you don't like it, then you're very masochistic because you keep doing it. What do you like? What draws? What do you love about it? Yeah.
I like being part of the team.
Yeah.
I want to be part of what's happening. I like to have my input, recognized. I like to work with different people. Like each of these groups that I've worked, it's a different set, and so I've gotten to know more people in the congregation by doing different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very much relational in that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the church. The church thrives on those relationships. So you're right on there. Let's talk about your faith more generally. I know you, I want to know what uplifts your faith. I know you are a very musical person, right? In a musical family, but from my interaction with you, you also come across to me as someone who cares deeply about words and ideas. What sort of nurtures your faith? That's a tough question.
Yeah, I know it kind of is. It is a tough question, but I am nurtured by my community, by the people I'm involved with. But at the same time, like you mentioned words and ideas, and I like to read. I like to have thoughtful discussions.
Yeah.
And one of the things I like, and I guess a goal for mine for the coming year, is to do more adult ed Sunday school classes, because I like the idea of studying the Bible and relating it to the things we're dealing with every day. And sometimes I'm just lazy and don't get out of bed in time. And so I really want to participate more in those as we move forward, and just to hear how different people can read the same passage and have different thoughts on that.
Yeah.
And then to relate it to today. It's amazing, a book written so many years ago, it still applies to us today.
Right. I love that part too. Let's do it.
Yeah.
No, it is a lot of fun to do that. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pull us to a close. I wanna give some time. We're gonna watch this on Sunday. I hope some of you are able to join us, so we can have some more discussion with Donna. So on Sunday the 20th, we'll have that time with Donna. So Donna, I just want to say thank you for stepping up into yet another stretch area at Ascension. When I send you an email and say, hey, can I interview you on a computer and talk about your work in life? And you said, all right, fine. So I appreciate that. So, all right. Well, we'll say bye to everybody, and hopefully get to talk to you all during an adult ed time. So thanks all.
So.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.